Rabindranath Tagore, who lived between 1861 to 1941, was the author of Gitanjali, and it's profoundly or deeply sensitive, fresh, and beautiful verse or poem. He was the first non-European person to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1913. This poem is one of his vastly read and discussed poems. It was originally composed or written in Bengali, but later he himself translated it into English. This poem is from his Nobel Prize winning anthology. Anthology is a collection of poems. So he had an anthology that was called Gitanjali. And this poem, that is where the mind is without fear, is one part of this anthology. Now, Tagore lived during this time where India was ruled by the British. You can see he lived before 1947. India got independence from the British in 1947. So in this poem, besides asking for political freedom from the British, Tagore appeals to God. He prays to God for social, educational, and economic freedom for all the people of India. So here we will be doing the warming up exercises and the English workshop of this poem. Match the terms with their given meanings. So we have humanism, patriotism, internationalism, liberalism, and environmentalism. Humanism meaning a rationalistic outlook towards humans rather than a divine or a supernatural one. So we don't look at everything, towards religion, but you treat humanity and be good with human beings. Next, the quality of being patriotic or having vigorous support for one's country is patriotism. Internationalism is the state or process of becoming or being international. Not only of my country, which is national, but I am also a citizen of the international world. Liberalism, holding liberal or very broad-minded views or ideas or thoughts. And environmentalism means concern about and action aimed at protecting the environment. Poems in English are of different types, like the sonnet, epic, limerick, idyll, ballad, humorous, elegy, lyric, and free verse. Now, this is the description of different types of poems. So let's see where we can match what. A long story or poem, often mythical, means not true, is an epic. A short story or a poem with a message, a ballad. A poem of 14 lines is a sonnet. Song-like poem, lyric. Poem with no uniformity of rhyme, rhythm, etc. Free verse. A poem set in picturesque, very beautiful, rustic background, means the background of trees and the countryside, is an idyll. A sad poem lamenting the death of a loved one, elegy. A 5-line short funny poem with a rhyme scheme AABBA is a limerick. And a poem written just for fun to create humor is humorous. Coming to the English workshop, write down lines from the poem as a proof for the following. Now, Tagore wishes for a nation where people are truthful. How do we know that? Because there is proof in the poem from the line where words come out from the depth of truth. Similarly, the poet would like everyone to work hard to reach their goal and in the long run to reach perfection. So if you read the poem, you'll be able to pick out this line, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. Another line, the poet wishes that everyone in his country holds his head high in dignity. Very simple. This line is from the poem where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. The poet dreams of a nation where knowledge should be free to all. This line from the poem where knowledge is free tells us that Tagore wishes for this. The poem is a prayer. How do we know it's a prayer? From this line. Into that heaven of freedom, my father, he calls out to God, my father, let my country awake. Read the columns carefully and match the expressions with their meanings. So we have so many expressions here. The head is held high, narrow domestic walls. So let's see what we match with that. The head is held high, meaning a person with self-respect, who respects himself and he is proud of being like that. Narrow domestic walls is narrow-mindedness, when we have, very little small thinking. Knowledge is free. That means education should be given to all without any, conditions like caste, religion, whether the person is rich, poor, etc. Depth of truth, meaning sincerity of the heart, truthfulness, sincerity of, the human being. Mind is without fear. A fearless person stretches its arms aiming at perfection. The clear stream of reason, meaning clear thinking. Dead habits, dried, infertile land of sands, old, old, ancient kind of traditions and things which is not useful today. Ever widening thought and action, broadening one's outlook and attitude. Answer the following questions in your own words. Now, there is another video on my channel where line by line, in detail, I have explained the entire poem. And if you watch that video, you'll be able to answer all these questions very easily. How is the world broken into fragments or compartments or pieces? The world is broken into fragments on the basis of religion, caste, creed, race, gender, money, etc. Explain what the tireless striving should be for. People should tirelessly strive or work hard towards aiming for perfection without giving up. Where words come out from the depth of truth. Explain in your own words. This sentence means where people do not fear to speak the truth and they speak it with truthfulness or sincerity of heart. Who is thee in the poem? What does the poet appeal to thee to do? In this poem, thee refers to God Almighty. The poet appeals to God to lead people or people of India into a heaven of freedom where they wake up with good thoughts, deeds, words and actions. What qualities does the poet wish to inculcate in his countrymen? What qualities does the poet wish his countrymen, that is each Indian, to have within them? The poet wishes to inculcate qualities of fearlessness, knowledge, dignity, that is self-respect, truthfulness, diligence, means hard work, striving to be perfect, and broad-mindedness in his countrymen. Write your own response and justify. Wherever it is needed, you may give reasons. Is the poem a prayer only for India? The poem is a prayer for India alone, but it is also relevant for other countries. What should the words we speak reflect or show? The words we speak should reflect truthfulness and sincerity. What should the people keep on widening? How can it be done? People should keep on widening their attitudes and outlook, getting rid of prejudice, traveling to different places, seeing how different people live, their cultures, etc. And education can help people to broaden their outlook. From what darkness of night should our nation awaken? Our nation should awaken from the darkness of prejudice, fear, untruthfulness, the lack of respect, imparting knowledge only to a few, creating divisions in society, insincerity, and from outdated traditional rituals and customs. So these are some of the not so good qualities that Tagore wants Indians to get rid of. What attributes of Rabindranath Tagore does the poem or this prayer reflect? What qualities of Rabindranath Tagore do we see through this poem? The poem reflects Tagore's patriotism and love for India, his clear thinking, broad outlook, his emphasis on the importance he gives towards hard work, and his scientific attitude. What effect does the repetition of the word where at the beginning of each line of this poem achieve? Why does he use the word where at the beginning of each line? The repetition of the word where gives the poem a rhythmic, replicative effect. Read the poem carefully and complete the table. Now, the table has three parts. First are concepts in the poem. So, he talks about mind, the head, knowledge, words, habit, thought, and action. Now, the mind, the present situation, when Tagore wrote this poem, the mind was full of fear. And what does Tagore expect it to be? The best situation or the ideal situation? He expects the mind should be without fear or fearless. The head at the moment is bowed down, but he expects the head to be held high. Knowledge is limited only to a few, but in modern India, Tagore wants that knowledge is free and available to all. Words are untruthful and insincere, but in modern India, he wants Indians to have sincerity or truthfulness in their words. Habit, harmful rituals and traditions are followed in olden India, but he expected that there should be reason and clarity of thought. Thought and action. The present situation was determined by very narrow-minded attitude. But in ideal India, Tagore wanted his thoughts and actions to be determined by a broad outlook. Complete the following sentences using your own interpretation, meaning your own idea of what you have understood of the poem. When the mind is without fear and head unbowed, we enjoy freedom. When knowledge is free, every citizen enjoys the right to learn and to get knowledge. We can prevent social injustice when we pull down discriminatory walls of caste, class, religion, etc. Constant effort and strife leads to achieving goals to perfection. Logical thinking and reasoning can put a stop to old customs and traditions which are harmful. Tagore appeals to God to make his country a heaven where people have good thoughts and do good deeds and actions. Fill in the blanks. Students should keep themselves aloof or far away from old harmful traditions. When knowledge is free, everyone will be literate, literate meaning educated. It is a social duty of every student of the modern world to uproot narrow-mindedness from societies. Students must develop broad outlook and attitudes. In the world of psychophancy, students must have self-respect. Psychophancy meaning people who go overboard, they keep on complimenting their bosses and people who are a little above them to get something from them. So the world today is full of sycophants, but we must not be like that. We must have self-respect. Find out examples of metaphor from the poem. First of all, metaphor is something that where in the poem we directly compare two things. Like for example, the clear stream of reason. Reason has been compared to the clear stream. So clear thinking. Second one, dreary desert sand of dead habit. Old dying habits have been compared to dreary desert sand. Write an appreciation of the poem in about 12 to 15 sentences with the help of the following points. If you go to my channel and see the explanation of this poem, there's the appreciation already written over there, and you can match and see which one you like better. The poem Where the Mind is Without Fear is written by the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. It is a patriotic poem written in the form of a prayer to God. There is no rhyme scheme as the poem is written in free verse. The figures of speech used to enhance or to better the poem are alliteration, metaphor, personification, apostrophe, and inversion. An example of alliteration is into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the sound of the letter D is repeated for poetic effect. The poet wishes and prays for an awakening of the citizens of his nation. The poem is not only a prayer to the Almighty, but a message to all Indians to awaken and shake off all bondages of colonial rule, that is the British rule, and those of traditions and improper thinking. Imagine that you have to deliver a speech on the occasion of Independence Day or Republic Day in school assembly. Prepare a speech to deliver on India of my dreams. So this poem will give you enough of information to write a lovely speech. So use the following steps: the greeting and salutation, self-introduction, introduction of the topic, elaboration of the topic with examples, conclusion, and thanking the audience. So in speech writing, first, because you are doing it in a school assembly, you will greet your principal, teachers, and your students, your colleagues, your classmates, and then you will introduce yourself and the topic you are going to speak on, that is India of my dreams. Then elaborate on the topic with examples, like you could use the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear, saying that you want an India where knowledge is free for all, or people are very broad-minded, on people, they dream and they transform those dreams into thoughts and action. Then you can conclude, and thank the audience. Read the short story written by Rabindranath Tagore, The Kabuliwala or The Homecoming. Yeah? If you get that book, read it. It's a nice, simple reading book, the first page of which is given here.